Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business Interview. I'm Sean Aylmer. Global markets have been thrown into chaos by Donald Trump's tariffs. But in addition to his economic policies, the president has also implemented his agenda of deporting illegal immigrants, slashing government spending and departments, and cracking down on DEI. We're talking diversity, equity and inclusion there. He's also shaken up geopolitics, including a public confrontation with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and efforts to take control of Greenland. It's a lot, considering he hasn't even been in the White House or back in the White House for 90 days yet. Bruce Wolpe is a senior fellow non-resident at the United States Studies Center. He's worked with the Democrats in Congress during President Barack Obama's first term. His latest book is called What Trump's Second Term Means for Australia, and predicts that America's democracy won't survive a second Trump term. Bruce Wolpe joins me in the studio. Bruce, welcome back to Fear and Greed.
Great to be in a land of freedom and democracy.
America's democracy won't survive a second Trump term. That's a big call.
It's a big call. We'll see. I mean, but the risks are all there. He has centralized power. No president is as governed with so much executive power as Trump. That goes back to Franklin Roosevelt. He continues to take actions which end up in the courts, principally on immigration, what he's doing in government agencies, the people he's firing, and things like that. And you have a series of rulings, some in favor, most against. But they have not matured to a point where there's a landmark case before the Supreme Court about what his powers are as president. And everyone is anticipating that at some point the Supreme Court will say, "Thou shalt not," and Trump will say, "I certainly will, and I will not obey a ruling of the Supreme Court." And that would precipitate a constitutional crisis.
One of the great things about the US is its ability to reinvent itself.
Yes.
And if you think of the late 60s, there's probably more turmoil in the streets, at least, in the late 60s than there is today. Now, the players back then, and Lyndon Johnson, Nixon, those sorts of people, perhaps they weren't as extreme as Donald Trump. But I'm trying to put this period of American democracy, for want of a better term, in place.
It's not just democracy. Well, there are cycles in American politics. So things like Make America First, that was in the 1930s. Trade wars, the Smoot-Hawley tariff was in the 1930s. Movements of radical government power against minorities, McCarthyism, it's there. But there's something that's really happened within the first 100 days that I don't think people have fully appreciated yet. Within the first 100 days, the United States is no longer the leader of the free world. And in the first 100 days, Trump has crippled, if not dismantled, the global worldwide trading regime that we have. That's pretty big stuff in a very short period of time.
Do you think that void will be filled, presumably, of the free world? I mean, China's trying to do it, but it's not the free world. So Europe, presumably, is the only grouping that can fill that. Do you think the US and Trump understands what they're doing?
Yes. I mean, I think Trump absolutely understands what he's doing. He's consistent. Everything he's talking about, trade, America getting ripped off, trade deficits, and people taking advantage of the United States, he's been saying since the 1980s. And he believes that we should go back to the 1980s, but the world is a different place, and that's why it's such a jarring adjustment as to what he's doing. And yes, I think most of the world wants to opt out of the China-United States decoupling and raging economic warfare and do something else. But that's international. That's not global. If you have something that doesn't include the United States and China, the two biggest powers in the world, where are you really? So I think Australia can cushion to a degree, adjust to a degree. It's a pretty inventive country. It's got a lot of creativity, but it's not the same. And there's what's so clear is settling on a long-term view as to what's going to happen. That's really hard right now.
Are there not people around Donald Trump that can say, hey, what you're doing is silly? Or does he just not listen to them?
Sean. Haven't you learned anything from the first term?
You're looking at me like this.
I mean, I tell you, there were those people in the first term. They're now being investigated and jailed by the Justice Department. Yes. No, he hired people who would absolutely, that was the one thing he learned. He did not want a chief of staff who would say, "I'm sorry, Mr. President, you can't do that," or a chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff who says, "No, you cannot order troops into the streets of the cities," or an attorney general who said you lost the election. Those people are gone. The people in, even someone like Scott Bessent,
Yeah.
who is the Treasury Secretary, very
With
well
a big,
regarded,
big reputation, yeah.
big reputation, but he's gone, for the trade policy as well. He's tinkered with it a little bit, so we had a pause.
Yeah.
But the tariffs are still in effect.
Yeah. Bruce, we'll be back in a minute. I'm speaking to Bruce Wolpe from the United States Studies Centre. You wrote recently that one of the big challenges for the US is a lack of focused opposition. We only ever hear from Trump, and in my mind, the only person that seems to be able to stop them, or the only institution, are the courts at this point. What about the Democrats?
There is no opposition leader. In Australia, we have, no matter how few seats the opposition controls in Parliament, there's an opposition leader that the media turns to that person to comment on what the government is doing. And it's not balanced, but you have two views and they're out there. The tragedy for the Democrats is they did not take the House of Representatives in the election last year. So the Republicans control the House and the Senate. That means there's no oversight by Congress. There are no committees with subpoenas and investigations and hearings. And therefore, there's nothing that they can do. And what you have is Trump flooding the zone. He's issued 100 executive orders that have 1,000 policies, and they're over everything. And there's no critical mass, no single leader who stands up every morning at 10 a.m. and says, here are the 5 biggest atrocities that Trump committed since sunrise. Mm-hmm. And this is what we're doing about it. That is immensely frustrating to Democrats. So nothing is happening at the Washington level, but the grassroots are really taking fire. And so you have two things. You have demonstrations in cities across the country. They're growing. And secondly, something very interesting, Republican members have gone home and they have town hall meetings. And over the past few weeks, they've gone and done their usual thing with town hall meetings, and people are coming in and they're yelling at them, and they're really getting angry. And so Democrats are now going into Republican electorates and saying, oh, we still have freedom of assembly in the United States. So they go into Republican electorates and they hold town hall meetings and people come out. And so it's a grassroots, not rebellion, it's a grassroots movement against Trump and where it is, but it's not stopping him.
Okay, so what's his polling like? I mean, it probably is a bit irrelevant because we're, it's 3 years, 9 months from another election. But do Americans still think as highly of him as they did previously?
They're higher than in the first term. When he was elected, he won 49.8% of the popular vote. His polling was at 49%. It's now down lower in the 40s and is headed towards 40. The issue, and it is really the most emotive issue aside from tariffs, is immigration. Strong support in immigration. It's like 60%. Go ahead. Get rid of the people who are not here illegally, yep, and so forth. But on the economy and what's going to happen, and on tariffs and what the effect will be, people are really worried about it. And so is it going to cause inflation? Is it going to cause shortages? What happens to my job? And so forth. And so that is leading to growing concern. But Trump is thinking, well, the midterms aren't until next year. I may never have to face the voters again. I know what I want. I want the 1980s and my policy and America first and protectionism and nativism, and I'm going to do it. And I can take the political heat for a period of time. So he's not directly affected, but the members of Congress are beginning to really worry about it. And so if you see his poll numbers go below 40%, that's his base. And so if he starts eating into his base, that's trouble for him.
Okay. The Supreme Court, you mentioned it before, they haven't been tested yet, but ultimately they probably will be tested, won't they?
Yes, they will. And it could be on something like Congress by law establishes the Department of Education. He's closing it down. Same thing with the Voice of America, same thing with the USAID. Trump has closed those down. Well, is that constitutional or not? And that would be, he also wants on citizenship. He wants to deny citizenship to people from foreign countries who come to the U.S. to have and they have babies, and that baby is a citizen. It's called birthright citizenship. That is in the Constitution. And he's saying, I don't intend to honor it. So that is being tested. And the Supreme Court will, I believe, rule, even the strict constructionists, those are the words of the Constitution. There's no way around it. So if he disobeys something like that, that would be a constitutional crisis.
Okay. So, I mean, the point is that you think that the Supreme Court, notwithstanding it's extremely conservative at the moment, the balance is they will still come down in terms of how they read the Constitution.
Yes.
Where you get the crisis is if he ignores the Supreme Court.
That's right. And he says, I'm not going to obey it. We have three co-equal branches of government, courts, legislature, executive. Suddenly, if he's not obeying a Supreme Court order of thou shalt not, it's not a co-equal branch of the government.
Frightening. Is there anything good that he's done that you've seen?
He took over the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. No,
everyone else then resigned from it.
The point is, nothing is too small for this man. Yeah. There's a portrait. Colorado, a citizen of Colorado. I vote here, thank God. But and there was a portrait in the State House that Trump didn't like, and he wanted it taken down, and it was taken down. I mean, really,
it is quite astounding how much detail. He gets into. So, the banker J.P. Morgan's Jamie Dimon,
yes,
and he's writing all about, hey, people get off their phone in a meeting. And I think to myself, why is the CEO thinking about that? Just pass it on. Trump's the same.
This is very interesting you mentioned Jamie Dimon, because when the trade war starts, Liberation Day and so forth, and people are really going really tense. And so he goes on Fox News, Maria Bartiromo, whatever, and knows that Trump will probably be watching, and he gives a message. I think tariffs have a useful purpose. But I think in this instance, it could go too far. And we should be very careful about it. And that's when Trump paused, like 2 hours later. And so that is a very smart way to go to him in a circular way. And you can influence things at the margins. But there was a quote that he gave that just really, what is China going to do? He's waiting for Xi to pick up the phone. And Trump says, China wants to make a deal. They just don't know how quite to go about it.
Yes.
I mean, really? The arrogance.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Quite incredible. Bruce, thank you for talking to Fear and Greed.
Thank you, Sean.
That was Bruce Wolpe, Senior Fellow, Non-Resident at the United States Studies Centre. This is the Fear and Greed Business Interview. Join us every morning for the full episode of Fear and Greed, business news for people who make their own decisions. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.